like I I disappointed a lot of people, you know? Yeah, it was tough. And I had to do something to make up for that disappointment. And that was probably it. Like the TV show was my time to shine. It was my time to be able to give back to my family to make up for the things that I had done. And like I said, nobody really knows that about me. Nobody. And that was hard for me. It was really hard. But once I had the idea, I knew that I couldn't quit because that was going to be the thing for me that set my life apart from where I was. But you know this they have to beat. Baby, tell me what you want now. I'ma always be your gravity. What you need, baby, I'ma hold you. Baby, I'ma hold you down. Baby, I'ma hold you down. Baby, I'ma hold you down. Yeah, hold you down. Yeah, hold you down. Yeah. I guess it's just results when you doing the work. We let it out, we bet it out, set it out, then we search. And if you put it on the line, you know what it's worth. That's why we align like the universe. I'm tripping on the power, don't words, a little shortage. I'll always come around. Ooh, we'll orbit, ministrating, debating with feelings we keep in the storage and we falling.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining us today on Stogies and Scotch and everything in between. I'm here with my boys, Vince, Daniel, and Austin, of course, our award-winning mixologist. And today we have a very, very special guest with us. He really doesn't need any introduction. If he's had in my opinion, he's had one of the best shows on national television. You guys, I know you guys are fans. Everybody was really excited to have him here today. And his show was Tanked. And if you've seen the show, you know that this guy's built tanks for everybody from Shaq, Dwight Howard, Marshawn Lynch, Antonio Brown, Steve Aoki, Jeff Tremaine, Jeff Dunham, you name it, and the list goes on. Everybody, help me welcome Brett Raymer.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
So, Brett, let's get right into it, man. We know that everybody knows the show was super successful, right? But tell us how that show got started and the concept behind it and how it went from an idea to being on network television.
So it's funny you asked that because a lot of people don't know the backstory of how we got started. So we started our business in, believe it or not, in 1997. And in 97, I met Wade. My dad put up the money to start ATM. And ATM was going really well. And then one day I was watching Orange County Choppers. And, reality TV wasn't really huge back in the early 90s. It didn't start to become big until sometime around in 2000s. And about 2007, I'm watching Orange County Choppers, and I see these guys, and I'm watching them, and I'm like, wow, it's really cool. And a light bulb went off. I'm like, wow, these guys are just regular guys that own a business, and now they're famous, and they're on television. I'm like, that shows me that anybody could do it, right? But the one thing I noticed about that show is that they weren't really family-oriented. And growing up in the 90s, everybody saw Married with Children, and that was like my favorite show. So I felt like more people could relate to Married with Children than they could to the family values of Orange County Choppers. So I came in one day and I'm really excited. I'm like, guys, you see that episode of Orange County Choppers last night? I'm like, those guys turned a motorcycle into a rocket ship. I go, it was the coolest thing in the world. I go, we could turn aquariums into rocket ships. And they looked at me and they were like, dude, that's a terrible idea. That's terrible. And then when I heard them say that was a terrible idea, not only they just weren't on board with my excitement. They weren't there with the energy that I had. And one of my friends that worked with us, Chuck, I was like, Chuck, can you believe it, man? I'm like, what do you want to do? And he's like, let's do something about it. He goes, they don't believe in it. We got to make this happen. I'm like, of course we got it. What do you want to do? We have no idea. So we're like, let's go down to UNLV Film School, right? We have a nice big college down there. They have a nice film program. Let's ask the professor if we can get the professor to come down and kind of check out what we have going on. Now remember, when you want to learn something, where do? You go to a college teacher, your professor. He's going to be able to guide you in the right direction. So we went on a whim. We made an appointment. We went down there. We meet the professor. We talk to him, and he's like, wow, it sounds pretty interesting. Let me come to your facility and check it out. So he walks around our facility, he checks it out, and he goes, wow, you guys got something really amazing here. He goes, but unfortunately, we don't have the budget to really help you guys out. He's like, but what you need to do is, he points to the yellow pages and he goes, you see that book right there? He goes, let your fingers do the walking. He goes, find production companies and pitch them your idea. So I'm like, just cold call, just pick up the phone. He's like, just pick up the phone and basically get on a phone and just give him your energy and your idea and tell him how you want it. So I'm gonna show you how the first couple of phone calls went. It went like this. Yeah, hi, this is Brett Raymer. I live in Vegas. My family, we have an aquarium company and we're looking to do a reality show. We want to build these crazy aquariums. Our family's crazy. Hello? 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 Yeah, that didn't go too well, right? So then I'll keep calling. You know, every third phone call, someone would hang up on me. It started to get, deflating. So 10 months go by, and finally I get this producer from LA. He's like, you know what, I'm going to be in Vegas in a few weeks. He goes, I'll come check you guys out. So I'm like, all right, great. So I'm excited. We got this producer coming down. I have no idea what to expect. He comes down to the facility. I walk him around the facility. He walks around. He sees everything that's going on. He goes, wow, you guys got something pretty amazing here. He goes, it's pretty cool. He goes, I'd be interested in doing it. I'm like, all right, well, what's it going to take? He goes, well, it's going to take $5,000. I said, $5,000, okay. I go, we got a little bit of a problem. He goes, what's that? I said, I'm $49.99 short. So he started laughing, like you guys did. And he goes, look, you're really funny. He goes, all right, I'm going to do it. He goes, I go, it's not going to cost me anything. He goes, no, it won't cost you anything. He goes, but look, he goes, you guys are in the production game. You know that when they shoot the video and they pay for it, they own the content, right? So at the end of the day, I said to him, I go, I heard that if you guys shoot it and you guys, I don't pay for it, that you guys are going to own all the content. He goes, yeah, that's correct. I go, but you're going to sell this, right? He goes, 100% we're going to sell it. Otherwise, I wouldn't shoot it. He goes, that's how I feel. So I go, so what's the difference if you don't sell it than giving me back the content? I go, you feel comfortable enough that you're going to sell it. So that means that if you sign this document to me and you sell it, this paper's irrelevant. And he goes, yeah, that sounds like, he goes, you got a good point. He goes, I go, because I'm bringing you my hard-earned show that I think is going to be a winner. And if you can't do your job correctly, I feel like I should get that content back. And he goes, I go, you going to do your job correctly? He goes, of course. So I go, then sign the paper. And he goes, you know what? I will. So he signs the paper. And so remember, a year goes by since I made the phone calls. Now he gets to shop it for a year. I signed a year contract with him. 6 months go by, 8 months go by, 9 months go by, a year goes by, and he doesn't sell the show. So now keep in mind, we got 1 year of phone calls, 1 year of him shopping the show. We got 2 years of the show, and we got nothing. So I'm kind of depressed, like this was my idea. My family's still razzing me, how my dad would see me, be like, hey, how's that show coming? Everything going good, And I would hear jokes, and my friends would be like, yeah, I saw your dad. Your dad said that if you would work on your regular job as much as you would work on the reality show, that you would need to work on the reality show because your regular job would be even more successful. So nobody really believed in the show except for me. And I felt like the show was going to take us to the next level. So 2 years go by. I'm really depressed. I come into work, like I'm kind of like hiding from everybody because I don't want to hear all the jokes and all the laughing. And I started to think about it, about why I wasn't being successful. And I came to the conclusion that I was working too hard at it. Right? And I'm gonna give you a little analogy, right? So sometimes when you're single and you want a girlfriend, you go out and you try to find that girlfriend and you don't meet the right person because you're looking too hard, right? It's when you least expect it. Maybe you're at the grocery store and you just happen to turn around online and you meet your girl online, and that's like where you least expect it. So I said to myself, I think I'm trying too hard at it. I think I need to just take a break, refresh, put it away, and let's see what happens. So I take the disc, I put it away, and another 6 months go by, and a buddy of mine calls me up from college, and he's like, hey, what have you been up to? And I'm like, bro, crazy you ask, I've been working on this reality show. He goes, you know what? Hold that thought. He goes, I'll be in Vegas in a couple of weeks. I'm moving to Vegas. He goes, when I get there, I want to see what you got working on. Let's see what we can do. So my buddy moves to Vegas. He comes, sees me, and he checks out the video, and he goes, dude, you got a hit TV show here. And I'm like, yes, one person. Finally, 2.5 years later, I finally got one person, right? Now, this is my best friend. I haven't seen him since college. Hadn't seen him in years. Is he really going to tell me it's terrible, right? So I'm just thinking about it. I'm still a little skeptical. He goes, you know what? He goes, let me get a copy of it and let me send it to one of my friends in New York. He's a producer at Fox 5 News. He goes, he'll give you an honest opinion. So we take it and I send it off to him, and he calls me up a couple days later and he goes, dude, you got a hit TV show here. And I went, yes, 2 people, right? So now you got to keep in mind, you get 2.5 years of having nobody, and then all of a sudden you get 2 people, one being in the television industry, letting you know that you have something that could possibly be a hit show. It was super exciting to me, right? I was coming into work, I had like a new flair in my game. I didn't care what my family said. I'm thinking it's gonna get picked up. I'm walking in, I'm strutting in, and I'm just feeling good about myself because I think it's gonna go places. Well, he takes the disc and he calls me up and he's like, look, you need to sign another contract. He goes, we're going to do 6 months contract, and I'm going to send it to this lady named Nancy Glass. Now, Nancy, she was on 60 Minutes. She's done a bunch of interviews over the years. If you look her up, she's pretty big. So Nancy gets the disc and she calls me up and she goes, oh my God. She goes, this is amazing. Because she goes, but you know what the problem is? She goes, the problem is you guys shot a pilot and not a sizzle reel. She goes, so there's a 30-minute show here. She goes, but all the good stuff that you shot is 20 minutes in. She goes, so what they do is they watch the first 10 minutes of this disc. They see it's boring. They shut it off. She goes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it. I'm going to recut it. I'm going to add music to it. I'm going to make it so it's just incredible. I go, okay, great. Let's do what you got to do. So she goes, 2 weeks later go by. She sends it back to me and I watch it. I'm sitting there and I'm going, wow, like this is like beyond amazing, because she took everything that we had shot, and everything's based on the editing, and she edited it so much better than before, and she made it into a sizzle reel. So I'm like, this is the one, this is the winner. So we send it off to Animal Planet. Now, many years go by, we wind up meeting the people from Animal Planet. Show winds up getting picked up. The way it went down, they told us, is basically they get the show. And I always tell people, sometimes in life, it's not always about, hard work works, but you got to be lucky at some point in time. There's always a little bit of luck that transpires in your life at some point, whether it's work, whether it's relationship, whether it's family, but there's always that little bit of luck. And at the same time that we were pitching a show, Animal Planet happened to be looking for an aquatic show, but they didn't know what they were looking for. So they get our show. When they come in, oh, great, thank you very much. Wow, that looks great. So
these are Spanish coffees, by the way.
Spanish coffees. So they look at our show and they come to us years later and they go, once we got the pilot, Jen.
I got you.
So the second cocktail we're making today is a Spanish coffee. First time I ever had a Spanish coffee was in Seattle a few years ago, and changed my world. So I think it's one of the best hot cocktails you can have in a bar. It does require fire, so a lot of places won't allow you to have fire in your bar, but for this cocktail, I always make an exception. It's fun, people enjoy it, and it is a fantastic after dinner cocktail. So we're gonna start with a snifter glass. You need something that you don't put your hand on because it is a coffee cocktail and it will be hot. So I typically will use a snifter. We're gonna rim the snifter with some sugar. Nice and easy. We're gonna use some high proof rum. You need something that will light on fire. You don't need much of this, but you do need some. I'm gonna use a 151 from Gosling's. Take that rum and you soak it into the sugar of the glass. Very carefully. This is going to help to caramelize the sugar when you light it on fire. Get a nice even soak into that sugar rim. Then we're going to light it on fire. We're going to tilt that a little bit, get that sugar nice and caramely. We're going to add a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg. A little bit of coffee liqueur. I like to use Kahlua. And a little bit of Spanish brandy. I don't recommend using the best quality of the Spanish brandy, which would be better consumed by itself or with a nice cigar. But I will use a little bit of this to mix in this cocktail. After you add the brandy, then comes the coffee. High quality, bold roast coffee is the best for this. Then we're going to top it with some whipped cream. Fresh made is always best. This is going to add the sweet component to this cocktail. And then we're going to top it with a little more fresh nutmeg and cinnamon. And there you have a beautiful Spanish coffee.
Once we got the pilot, the girl goes, "Oh my God, this is the show that we've been looking for." So she runs down the hallway to this guy, JP, and she shows JP the show. And JP turns around and goes, "Wow, this is pretty amazing." So they signed us for one episode to shoot a pilot. We wind up shooting the pilot and we send it in to them. And they call us back and they go, "We got good news and we got bad news. Which one do you want to hear first?" We're like, "We want to hear the bad news first." So like the bad news is we're not going to be releasing the pilot. What's the good news? The good news is that we're giving you 5 more episodes and that we're going to release the pilot along with a series of 6. So our first pilot that we actually shot, it got greenlit for 6 episodes. So we were on television for 8 years. And during that 8 years, they considered it 15 seasons. We shot 156 episodes.
Wow.
In 8 years. So our first season, we shot 6. So we shot another 150 episodes over the course of the next 7 years. So we shot about 21 to 22 episodes a year after that every year. So we were at one point the longest running show in Animal Planet history. Wow. And, I always tell people it's about believing in what you do. I never thought that the show would not get picked up. Did I ever think it would take 3 years? I didn't think it would take 3 years, but I knew at some point that it would get us to where we needed to be. And that's what it was. It was just a lot of hard work, a lot of believing in that it was never going to fail, and then never quitting, right? Never listening to anybody outside of my family. Remember, your family's supposed to be the ones that are supposed to be there that support you, right? At the end of the day, I had the family that was kind of like, didn't believe in what we had. But once we got the show, so I'll tell you the kind of person my dad is, right? So believe it or not, they give you a list of things that they ask you, all right? And a lot of them are questions that, they'd say, have you ever been arrested? Are you a felon? Are you this? Are you that? Are you that? And a few of those questions, I've had my fair share of yeses, like I'm no angel. And some of the ones I was like, yes. And then maybe. I turned around and I'm like, "Oh, we're not getting signed. That's it. I just answered yes to all these questions." And then 2 days later, they came back and they signed us. So my dad goes, I go, "Dad, look, we got the signed contract." We go, "Got the signed contract." I go, "It's a done deal." So my dad goes, "It's not done until the money's in the bank."
True.
Right? So at the end of the day, we got our first wire transfer. And people don't realize, we made about $7,000 the first season. Okay? I lost money the first season making the show. The first 3 seasons, you don't really do well until season 3.
Wow.
So the first couple of seasons, we kind of struggled to really get us to where we needed to be. But then once the struggle was over, obviously the show did really, really well, and it continued on. And that's the story of Tank. That's pretty much how we got it started.
So you mean it didn't just happen overnight?
It didn't just happen overnight. It took 3 years.
Wow.
They didn't. The thing is you got to remember, reality television, they go and find you. Yeah. Right? They look for you. They look for content. They didn't look for us. I looked for them.
Wow.
So I actually had something that I thought was amazing, and I brought it to them, and I was like, "This is going to be your winner," and they agreed.
And it might have been a blessing in disguise if that film studio that picked you up. You might not have the connections and the progress, because I think it's like you said, started with your best friend who connected you to this person, got you where you're at as well too. So I see that as a blessing. Maybe it didn't happen right when you wanted to, but look where you're at now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, everything happens for a reason. I'm a really firm believer in that. And like I said, a little bit of luck has something to do with it. The show's been off the air now since 2019. But it's okay. Like, I don't mind. Like, maybe it'll come back and maybe it won't come back. But let me tell you something. What I did for those 9 years is something that I would never change in my life. It was a life-changing experience. Obviously I was able to meet an amazing amount of people, and they're people just like us. Even though they are celebrities, but they're just regular people. And the great thing about the show is that even though we were with celebrities, when I went there, I felt like we were the celebrities, right? And they wanted to be on our show. So it was going to like a regular person's house to me. And then that's what made everything so great. We were able to be ourselves. So being ourselves is what brought the fun out of the show. And then the celebrities, I think they knew that as well. And don't get me wrong, you have a couple here and there that, kind of just did the filming and kind of left. But for the most part, like, they watched the show. They wanted to be a part of what we had going on. And it was a really fun experience to go and meet, some of your celebrity people that you grew up with, idolizing, like Shaquille O'Neal, Clay Matthews, and seeing some of these guys that you've watched on TV and you never expect in your lifetime to ever meet some of them. Not only we get a chance to meet these guys, we get a chance to interact with them, hang out with them, befriend them. Even to this day, we're still friends with a lot of the celebrities that we've done aquariums for.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. Well, I definitely want to touch back on some of the stuff you talked about, man, but I did want to talk to you a little bit about adapting and improvising. A lot of people don't know this, but I think it was Blockbuster back in their heyday was doing really well, and they were approached by two guys with this crazy idea. And it was to basically move them from a brick and mortar setting to a click and order setting. And they were doing well, they were doing really good. And so they turned them down. And anyway, those guys ended up taking their idea and building up on it. And now they're a $5.56 billion company, probably the largest film streaming and film production company in the world right now, which we know is Netflix. And and I just wanted to see if you could share ways that you've adapted with your business. I mean, especially with COVID recently, how we had a lot of things have changed and stuff. So yeah, I just want to see if you could touch a little bit on that.
Yeah. So I think adapting came multiple ways. It came during the show, and it came after the show. And I'm going to kind of explain what I meant. So you run a business. My business started in '97. And the show came around in 2011. So you got 14 years of operating a company without a production being part of your everyday life. We went from running a business to becoming reality TV stars. Now, people don't realize that with becoming a reality star becomes responsibility to the production company, right? They're paying you a salary. You also have a responsibility to your business. To the 60 employees that we had, you have responsibility to them to make sure that your business is operating in a way that, while you're gone and while you're filming and while you're doing things, that you're bringing in the right people to support your business to make sure that it runs. Because remember, when you have two guys that are involved in their business every day, building aquariums, selling aquariums, and then you take those guys and put them out of, the business and move them into a filming realm and filming 185 days a year, that changes the ball game. So you have to adapt. You have to adapt your business style and how you do business. We were doing business on the road, taking our laptops with us, working in hotel rooms, filming a full day and then going back to our hotel room and doing quotes, working a lot from phones, from the internet, doing a lot more texting. You just have to bring in the right people. So that's where the adaptation came when the show was on. Well, in 2019, the show went away. And then at that point, you have to adapt to not being on TV anymore, right? You're so used to doing certain things for 8 years, going in every day and filming, and all of a sudden that goes away, right? So all the people that you brought on board, your business is now decreasing because you're losing a big part of your, audience, because your show, even though they run reruns, it's still not the same. So you lose a big part of your audience, so you have to kind of downsize your business. So we started working on downsizing in 2019, and then we didn't see eye to eye on where the business should go, me and my partner. So I decided in 2019 to retire from the aquarium business. So I wasn't part of that portion during the pandemic. I basically left ATM in 19, right before the pandemic. Well, the pandemic had started in March, and I had already left 6 months prior to that. I had already been gone from ATM. So as far as adapting during the pandemic, personally, I had to adapt because I left ATM in 2019, didn't know what I was going to do or where I was going to go, and then the pandemic hits, right? And then the world shuts down. So another kind of adapting, right? So what I did is I wanted to take my skills that I used, that I learned over the course of 8 years, video production, editing, creating, and use that to build something. So my girlfriend and I, we created a brand management firm, and we do brand management now. So we do video content, we do social media, we do it for a couple of different companies. But I've just taken what I've learned, over the years in Tanked, from being the executive producer, from being behind the scenes, from just learning all about the production. I wasn't just a talent, I wasn't just there on screen. I was part of the story writing. I was part of the editing. I was part of producing the shows. I was even doing some directing. So I learned a lot of that, and then I wanted to take some of that and utilize that towards my skill later in life. So now that I'm not shooting a show, I love creating content. I always love creating, creating aquariums or creating, film or creating content is still creating. So I really like doing that. And I think, taking that creative side and bringing it to the real world is really helped me stay in the game, right? But I also didn't want to be out of the fish game either. So I spent 30 years being the fish guy, and I didn't want that to go away. So I started, over the pandemic, I started doing a little homework and finding out, what the aquarium business needed. And the solution we came up with was maintenance. A lot of people have problems maintaining their aquarium, and a really good stat that people need to understand is that if you can maintain your aquarium and take care of your aquarium the first year you're in the hobby, you're most likely to have an aquarium for the rest of your life. But if you fail within the first year, you're most likely never to get an aquarium again. So what we want to do is like a 50-50 ratio. So with my next project, we're trying to bridge the gap between the 50-50 and try to make it 60-40, right? So if we can bring 10% more people into the hobby and keep them in for their lifespan, it's going to increase the hobby. So that's kind of what I've been working on over the last, couple of years.
Have you guys done anything like any kind of research into like self-cleaning tanks kind of thing? Any kind of?
You'll never have it. There's never going to be a self-sustaining. There's never going to be, I think, a self-sustaining aquarium. There's always going to be some sort of elbow work, elbow grease. But they have made tremendous strides in the industry to keeping tanks cleaner longer, to making better filters, to making better products that you can use for your aquarium to keep the algae down, to keep the ammonia down, to do different things. But realistically, you still need to be taught the right way. Look, the internet has spawned a lot of good things, but it's also spawned a lot of misinformation. So at the end of the day, when you go onto the internet, how do you know that you're getting the correct information? So what we've done is we've gone back to the studio to basically create this interactive aquarium maintenance training program where it's me basically teaching you how to maintain your aquarium interactively. And it's basically like masterclass on steroids, where we're able to teach you, train you, but then we can sell you all the products within the system. So I think it's going to be a game changer. It's going to launch hopefully sometime by the end of this year. And we've been working on it for a couple of years now, but now we're finally getting to the point, since everything's opening back up again, we're getting to the point of, being able to film it and get into the studio to make that happen.
Nice.
How do you deal with being in the public eye in your field? You're going to have, like you said, people on the internet that think they're Google experts. They know more than you. They see a way you do something. You're going to have those, what I call them, buzzards. They're always going to be around finding something fault in what you do. And once again, being in the public eye, how do you handle people that go and criticize what you do, your techniques, the way you handle things, whether it's with business or maintaining or building an aquarium? I'm the same way. I have a business, and a lot of people are like, oh, that's not the way I would do it. I'm like, just because it's not the way you would do it doesn't mean it's not the right way that we're able to do things. So how do you handle that? Because you're definitely more the public eye than not, and being one of the most highly rated shows and real, different in your approach, because there's not much or any shows about aquariums other than yours. So you're gonna have people that are gonna judge you for the way handling. How do you go about handling that?
So that's a great question. So in the beginning, it was really tough. It was really difficult for me in the beginning. 2011, 11 years ago, social media wasn't like it is today. You know, we didn't have Snapchat and Instagram. You know, we had Facebook back in the day, and maybe we'd have another maybe it was MySpace, or maybe right? Maybe there was another platform or two. But I didn't, being, you know, very critical of myself and the things that I do in general. It was really difficult to see people talk negative about what I was doing, you know, and it was really, the person that I am now is not the same person I was, you know, 11 years ago. I was real quick to get on the screen and type back to somebody and answer them back because I didn't understand, well, we'll call them trolls, right?
Yeah,
I didn't
trolls.
understand, or haters. I didn't understand that was an actual compliment, right? I didn't realize that those were the same people that were watching my show 3 times a week. You know, instead of once a week, they were watching
Increasing
it 3
your
times a
ratings
week.
by hating on you.
You know, I didn't realize that bad publicity is good publicity. You know, all that stuff. I just cared so much about what I was doing, and the negativity, to hear someone speak negative to me about something that I was passionate about, was upsetting.
Take it
And
personal.
I took it very personal. The network it took me in the room and basically explained to me, like, that's a compliment. You need to let that go. Like, let your fans, let everyone else speak on your behalf, because it's going to happen. So I stopped talking and I started watching what happens. And as soon as you know it, the fans started coming to the rescue, and they started talking about, you know, the good things and what it's doing. And then they started defending me. And the next thing you know is, you know, there's 500 comments later, and it's all good because it's sparking interest. And at the end of the day, you know, something bad, whether it's bad or good, is going to spark interest. And interest is what we were looking for, right? Because you want to make the show as popular as it can be. And controversy does that. So we let it go. And then as time goes on, I just started realizing that those were compliments.
The Manhattan, very classic cocktail, should be on every bar menu, everywhere. Any whiskey connoisseur is going to really enjoy a well-made Manhattan. A very easy cocktail, using rye whiskey traditionally, bitters of your choice, and a high-quality Italian sweet vermouth. We'll start by using some fresh ice. Always using your cheapest ingredients first. Bitters, I'd like to use Angostura. It's heavy with cinnamon and clove, but anytime you change up the bitters in a cocktail, it's going to change the flavor. Notice I use 2 dashes. One of the area codes in Manhattan is 212. It's the best ingredients, or the best way to make a Manhattan. 212 meaning 2 parts whiskey, 2 dashes bitters, 1 part vermouth. So we added our bitters first, being the cheapest ingredient. We're going to add 1 ounce of sweet vermouth. I like to use Carpano Antica. It's one of the very first original sweet vermouths ever made. Also, when using rye whiskey in a cocktail versus bourbon, you're going to add a little more spice. It'll dial back the sweetness of your sweet vermouth, and it should balance really well. Typically, I like to use, when mixing whiskey in a cocktail, I use typically something between 90 and 100 proof. High West Rye is right in between at 92. We're going to do 2 ounces. Many cocktails you'll see shaken, some you'll see stirred. This is a stirred cocktail because it is all spirits. Stirring the cocktail gives you the right amount of dilution. Dilution is just an important ingredient in any cocktail. Always straining into a clean glass, very important. The garnish for a Manhattan is typically a brandy-soaked cherry. and you have beautiful Manhattan.
And I didn't take it to heart anymore. So I was able to live with it. I was able to, and people direct message me. Now, if it was a direct message, we got back to everyone. I tried to get back to everyone and answer them in a way that I thought was, respectful. But the long story short is that like I see stuff like that now, and now it's like it goes completely over me. Like I'm way past that now. I look at it as those people are just, obviously either jealous or, they're the ones that, wish they were in my position and et cetera, et cetera. Like what we did for the industry, we took the industry from here to here. And we go to, YouTube in the last 10 years has become tremendous. I mean, you guys know, everybody's a content creator now, right? Everybody has a YouTube channel. There are kids that are 24 years old right now that have millions of followers in the aquarium world that started watching my show. And 11 years ago, they were 13 years old watching my show. And I see them and I go to these conventions and we're friends with them now. And like, they consider me like Godfather, like of the industry, right? I'm like the old guy in the industry, So I see these young guns and like, it makes me feel really good, to see these kids come over to me and go, I have my channel because of you. I started my company because of you. We watched you every episode, and my family now has 10 fish tanks. My store. I had a lady come over to me when the show first started. Lady comes over to me and she sees me and she's crying, hugging me, crying, and I'm like, man, why are you crying? It's okay. She's like, I can't thank you enough because your show saved my business. She goes, when your show came out, she goes, people would flow into my store and say, oh my God, did you see that show Tank last night? How can we get an aquarium like that? And she goes, we went from basically ready to close to now we can't keep, fish in our store. And I heard that story, multiple times, from kids and families and, thanks to you, parents are like, I'm so mad at you because you've cost me so much money, because we watched your show. We went out, we bought my kids 3 fish tanks, but we can't thank you enough because they're so into the hobby. My son wants to be a marine biologist. I hear that a lot. Even when we were in war in Iraq, soldiers would come in and visit us and be like, guys, I can't thank you enough for what you guys did for us while we were in Iraq. We were watching you guys. You guys would bring us to a whole nother world, take us away from the dimension, and we just loved watching your show. So as time went on, we started realizing how much the show did for so many different people on multiple spectrums. It was, military, autism, just behavioral kids, kids that just, couldn't sit still, that had disorders, just parents would just come over to us and thank us, just everything that we would do, it just seemed like the show was just moving in the right direction. It was just the first few years, everything was great, and then as time went on, things just started, happening. It was a TV show, we started, getting more popular, and then they wanted more episodes, and they wanted to try to work us more, and they wanted to try to get as many episodes as we can, the network's all about, putting out episodes. That's their job. And they didn't really care about our business in between. All they cared about was putting out shows. So it just got to the point where as time went on, we got more popular. It just got to become more work. You get busier, you get more people, you get more work, more staff. And then time went on, 2019 came around and the show got really expensive. And the new president came in and they were like, it's time for the show to end. And I was okay with it, I enjoyed making the show, but I just knew that it was time because we had done so much and it was just getting to the point where it was just becoming overwhelming.
You weren't enjoying it anymore.
Yeah, I wasn't enjoying the whole everything, like the
Circus.
Work, the filming, the traveling, the home shows. I had I owned donut shops. I had other businesses. It just started becoming a lot, We were literally, we were traveling 20 weekends a year to go to home shows to do autograph signings. So film 5 days, jump on a plane Friday, come home Sunday from, signing autographs and conventions, and then go right back at it on Monday. And we did that for, 8 years straight. 8 years straight. So, I needed a break. And then once the show ended, kind of just wanted to get out of the aquarium business completely. We didn't see eye to eye on a few things. So I just came in one day and I was like, man, it's time for me to go. And I just came in a left the aquarium business.
So since you left, what have you done? I know we talked a little bit more downstairs about that, but I'd like to expound on it. Being that you got the publicity and you got those great memories and that legacy with ATM and Tanked on Animal Planet, what did it do and how did it help you to bring you where you're at now? What did you take from that to help you? You talked about one of your restaurants, so I'm excited to go. I'm in Vegas every month, so super excited. I got hungry just watching your videos.
Stallone's right? What's the name of it?
Yes, Stallone.
Yeah. So tell us about that. What was your pivot from the show to doing your own thing, which is not even in the, like you said, in the aquarium business anymore?
So I love food. Well, once the show went away, once I left ATM, I kind of took a year off. Like I literally hung out in the sports book in Las Vegas and basically gambled every day. I went and played baseball, played football, basketball. Played all the games. Just kind of went there and I love sports. And I just I needed a break. I had gone 25 years of working and never really taking a year off or never really taking a break. So I had some money put away and I just decided to take a break until I figured out what I was going to do. So we raised a little bit of money and we started an immersive entertainment company in 2019. And so obviously everybody knows what the metaverse is now. We were doing the metaverse stuff 2.5 years ago. There's a lot of studios out there now that are building these immersive studios. We were doing that before COVID. So once COVID hit, we started pitching our ideas, but nobody really was ready to pull the trigger because COVID, everybody was like, 2 weeks to flattening the curve. We'll be back in 2 weeks. You guys remember that, right?
2 years later.
2 weeks to flattening the curve, right?
2 weeks and then 2 more weeks.
So then 2 more weeks became 4 weeks, and 4 weeks became 6 weeks, and 6 weeks became 8 weeks, and 8 weeks became months, and months
Then the
became
country
years.
shuts down, yeah.
Right? So our company that we raised the $500,000 for was on the verge. We had $2 million worth of business. It was all entertainment based. COVID comes, entertainment goes away, so all the business goes away. So we start pivoting towards doing things virtually. Nobody wanted to pull the trigger because everybody was thinking that the world was coming back in 30 days. So we kept the company open for 1.5 years. And like I said, we raised the $500,000 and $500,000 went in 1.5 years and then the company closed. So I wasn't successful in what I did, even though if that company would have stayed around, that company would have been a $100 million company. I have all faith in that company would have been that big because I see what's happening now with the metaverse and the NFTs. And we were literally doing that stuff 3 years ago. So it's a learning experience, right? I don't look at it as, yes, I failed. Yes, I lost a bunch of money. Yes, we didn't succeed in where we were at. But it wasn't a failure completely. I met great people from it that I'm still today doing business with. We learned a lot from our experience, right? That's the most important thing that I tell people. Go out, people always tell me, you're working on 50 things, bro. How do you have time to do it? I'm like, because I only need one to work. That's it. If I fail 49 times and I get one to work, who cares, right? Who cares, right? So I've been lucky enough in my lifetime to have 4 things that have really worked for me, right? I've been successful in the aquarium game. I've had a television show that I've been successful at. I have a brand management firm now that I'm doing really, really good at. I've done really well in real estate. So I've had a few things that have happened, but I've tried 100 things. You know what I'm saying? And 96 of those have failed, but 4 of them have been successful. So in my eyes, I'm a winner, right? Absolutely. Bottom line is that if you could have one successful thing, you're a winner. So I always tell people, my one word of advice to people is don't be the guy that said I would have, should have, could have, and then 30 years in your life goes by and you're like, man, I'm 60 years old. I wish I would have done, yada, yada, yada. There's not one thing that I've ever done that I regret.
Even in the failures.
Even the failures.
Because most people fail once and they're done. They don't have that mindset that if I can just make one of these things work, I'm gonna be just fine. People are like, I can't do no more. I'm broke. I'm going back to my 9 to 5. I'm gonna be miserable. And my wife's mad at me, my kids are brats, and they don't want to step out of their comfort zone. So that's kind of good that you, like you're talking about, you took your month off, you did your year off, your resets, and you had things that failed. And that's pretty substantial. But you've taken that as a learning experience to, and actually we're talking downstairs and just the things that you were telling us that you got going on. I was like,
most people fail because they don't believe in themselves. They don't really take that effort and they don't want
Preach.
to go out and actually fail, right? They don't want to fail, you know?
Well, and you know why though? It's because we live in a society today, and it's cancel culture. Like, you make a mistake, you're canceled. You fail, you're canceled. And not only that, we live in a microwave society where people nowadays, they just want things so instantaneously. Like, I love what you said, you know, about the show. You know, most people who watch it think, man, this just happened overnight. These guys had no problems. They went from concept to network, boom. But to hear you explain the process that you went through, and it's, you know, it's so great. And not only I'm so thankful that you said that, because, you know, it's something I tell my team all the time. Like, this isn't going to happen overnight. It's a slow grow, but big things can come from this if we stick to our guns, follow the path, work hard, right?
Hard work works. You know, at the end of the day, working really hard is what successful people do. It's not, you know, you're going to get some people that, you know, get inheritance, and some people that get it passed down. But then you're going to get a whole slew of people that had nothing and have made it because they've had nothing, you know? And at the end of the day, I'm not saying that I grew up in a middle class family, you know, but I've had a paper route since I'm 13. So I've worked since I'm 13. I've had a job, you know, I've always made money. And that's the key, is like, even my kids now today, like, I try to instill, it's a lot different society when we grew up, you know? Like, when I grew up, my parents were like, go outside, stay out as long as you want, as long as you're home by 6, it doesn't matter. They didn't have to know where I was. They knew I was at the neighbor's house, here, there. You know, I'm not like that with my kids. You know, like, my kids pretty much have everything now. You know, we try to give our kids and et cetera. And that's, you know, and some of it's good and some of it's bad. You know, and a lot of it has to do with the culture of today's day and age, the way kids are raised and brought up. But my kid, they work. I make them make their bed every day. I make them clean. We have 3 dogs. My son cleans the dog crap. Believe it or not, that's his job. You know, he needs to come in and clean that, and he doesn't like it. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. You know, you have to clean the bathrooms. Look, during the pandemic, I lived in a really big mansion, and it got to the point where I just couldn't afford it anymore. I didn't know what to do, but I didn't want to sell it. So I told my girlfriend, I go, guess what? We're moving out. She's like, we're moving out. I go, yeah, we're moving out. We're gonna rent the house. We're gonna rent the house. We're gonna Airbnb it. We're gonna hold it up for parties, et cetera, et cetera. So I moved out during the pandemic, literally on a spur of a dime. We open up a business. We start literally renting out our house, and it becomes super successful. I could afford to hire a maid for $500 and clean the house, but guess who did it? We did. My kids, myself. Guess who was scrubbing toilets? This guy. I was there cleaning the toilets. Ooh. I was there scrubbing. I had the gloves on. I was there doing it because I wanted to show my kids that it didn't matter how much money we were making, that you will not get it done like yourself. Yeah. So I could send maids and have them clean, but you know what? If I don't go back and check them, and then somebody comes in and it's dirty, how am I gonna say anything, right? Because I never went back and checked. So you know what I did? I did it myself. Yeah. And then nobody in that house could ever come to me and say to me it was dirty, because I did it myself. Wow. And my kids saw me cleaning bathrooms. They saw me scrubbing toilets. So I told my kids, I go, regardless of how much money we have, you see what your dad's doing. What am I doing? You're scrubbing toilets, right? I go, it doesn't matter. I go, I'm doing it because I know it's going to get done the right way. And that's what I try to tell them. Do it yourself, because nobody does it like yourself. Exactly. You guys know that. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm not saying that my job, you couldn't do it, you can do it. But at the end of the day, I know who I am and I know what I bring to the table. I would rather have 3 of me, you know what I'm saying, doing it, because I know the work is going to get done.
Right.
And that's kind of how I look at life. Like, you know, do it yourself, hard work works. Speaking of which, why I opened the restaurant, right? No, never opened a restaurant in my life. And then now we got one open. So, you know, I love food, and I've traveled around the world, you know, eating amazing food. And I've always wanted to own like a sandwich shop. I had this idea, you know, growing up, called this thing called Superheroes. And it was a sandwich shop where, you know, on the West Coast they call sandwiches subs, and on the East Coast they call them heroes. So I came up with this slogan, why be a sub when you could be a hero? And I always had this in my mind about opening up this shop called Superheroes. So it was something I had wanted to have done a really, really long time ago, but I never got around to it. You know, so many things in life. It was just something I always had on the back burner that I wanted to do. And then one day we moved from one neighborhood to another neighborhood, and my girlfriend was jogging in our new neighborhood, and she comes to me, she's like, oh my God, you gotta come check out this place. She goes down the street, she goes, I don't know what it is, it's an apartment complex, a high-end apartment complex that has like a bar inside of it. There's a lot of people hanging out. It looks like it's a pretty cool time. So we call over there and we find out that the place has happened to be open to a public. So now, mind you, it's an apartment complex. So you actually go in, you ring the buzzer, you get lifted in, and you go into this apartment complex, and they have this amazing sports bar that's overlooking the pool. So we go in there one time, and we're hanging out, we eat lunch, and we're like, wow, the food's really amazing here. These meatballs are like the best meatballs I've ever had. We're like, we got to come back here again at night. We come back a couple nights later, and all the Raider coaches are there. John Gruden, Greg Olson, Tom Cable. They're all hanging out at the table. We're hanging out at our table, and one of the coaches walks over to my table, and he's like, has his phone, and he's showing me a picture of his family and his kids, pictures of me and Wade with their arms around our cardboard cutouts in St. Petersburg. We have these big life-size cardboard cutouts of one of the tanks that we did, and he's showing us, it's in Tampa, these pictures of us. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. He's like, yeah, we're big fans of the show. Why don't you come over and meet the coaches and meet the chef, et cetera, et cetera. So I come over to the table, I meet John Gruden, we take pictures, we hang out, we meet the chef. Me and the chef start talking, and I'm like, man, your food's absolutely incredible. Your meatballs, everything we've had here is just fantastic. And obviously the coaches are all here. You got a good little thing going. I'm like, where you from? He goes, Brooklyn. I go, yeah, me too. I go, what part? He goes, Canarsie. I go, yeah, Mike Scott and Joey Scott. He goes, shut up, dude. He goes, Mike Scott's been my friend since I'm 5 years old. And I go, well, Joey Scott's been my friend since I'm 13. Well, come to find out, me and Chef, we grew up parallel. He's 55, I'm 52. We grew up parallel to each other. He grew up with the older brother. I grew up with the younger brother, but we didn't know each other.
Wow.
So we start naming out the same people. We start knowing the same people. Long story short is we become friends. He leaves Becca's 6 months later. I introduce him to my friend Anthony. My friend Anthony I met during the pandemic. We shot a bunch of cooking shows. Anthony was an amazing chef, traveled the world. I ate his food. I'm like, wow, your food's incredible. When I had this idea of opening up this restaurant, I started talking to Chef Louis, and I'm like, let me bring Anthony on board. I go, I think we got something special here. Louis worked in Florida for years. Anthony worked in Florida for years. They also knew a lot of the same people. Anthony's dad played cards with one of Louis's good friends back in Brooklyn. So the whole connection, the whole circle just kind of seemed right. We all knew each other. We all knew food. We all love food. And I'm the kind of guy that I know food, but I don't know the kitchen, right? I can cook at home, but I've never been in a professional atmosphere. I've never been in that, kitchen where I've worked with, chefs and sous chefs and servers. That's what those guys have done. I just know what good food tastes like, right? And I know amazing food. And I know that those two guys made me some of the most amazing food that I ever tasted in my life. So I turned around at them and I'm like, well, I think it's time, let's open up a place. So they were like, yeah, really? I'm like, yeah, I'll fund it. I said, I'm good at bringing people through the door. You guys handle the kitchen and you guys handle, the staff, and that'll be your end of the deal. And I brought them two on board, and then we opened up 5 weeks ago. We opened up a restaurant in Vegas called Stallone's Italian Eatery. Not big, 1,400 square feet, but our concept is new. It's all digital. So you walk in, you order from a kiosk, you sit down at your table, you scan and order from your phone. There's no front of the house staff. So everything is done by the back of the house staff. So the back of the house staff takes care of the front of the house. There's no dishes because we serve everything in to-go containers. So like high-end to-go containers. So we give you like the most amazing food, but there's no wait staff. There's no cleaning staff. So we've eliminated a lot of the staff portion of problems that have gone on in the industry. But what we've also done is we know how hard the back of the staff works and never gets a chance to really partake in the tips. They get a small percentage, they get a fraction. So if you're a waitress, you collect most of the tips and then you get 5% or 10% goes to the back of the house. And sometimes the chefs don't make anything. So we wanted to change that, right? We wanted to eliminate the back of the house, the front of the house staff, and be able to take care of the back of the house. So what we do is now we split all the tips pretty much, if you work full-time, evenly across the board, whether you're a chef, whether you're a dishwasher, whether you're a sweeper in the back. It doesn't matter. You partake equally in all of the funds that come through the tips, whereas normally the front of the house is the one that only makes the tips. And everyone in the back of the house now partakes in everything in the back of the house. So even my chefs are washing dishes because they're now partaking in all the tips that need to make that run. So I've noticed that the morale in the back of the house is great. You know, you walk back there, the people are, you know, that no one's complaining about doing dishes now because they're getting an extra 200 to 300 on their check every week, right? No one's complaining about cleaning the bathroom or sweeping the floors or doing the things. Well, that's not my job, you know. It's everyone's job. And I've noticed that the camaraderie between the staff is really strong. We've only been open 5 weeks, but the place has been slammed. And, you know, everybody, you can just see how they're all working to achieve a common goal. And that's important when you own a business, to have your staff members to believe in what you're pushing. If, you know, you don't have somebody believe in it and they're working there, they're never going to give you that 110%. So I really believe that the staff that we have, because they see that I want them to make money. I work there. I literally serve tables. So if people come to my restaurant, you're going to see me serving you food. And when you tip me, the tip doesn't go into my pocket, it goes into my staff's pocket. So I'm working for my staff, right? I'm there to make sure that they see that that everything is going correctly, that we're getting the orders right, that we're making sure that when you leave there, you're having the same experience that Brett Raymer would want to have in a restaurant. So I'm trying to give you that same experience. And I think the staff sees that I'm not an absentee owner, that I'm there every day. So they think they appreciate that. And they also appreciate the fact that I'm working hard and I'm getting $0 for it, right? I'm not taking tips. I get a $20 tip, it goes right into the tip jar. You know, I get money, it goes to them. So they appreciate that. And I think that they believe in what we have going on. And like I said, the food, I didn't open it because of the money. The money's gonna come if you got good food and you got, you know, good conversation and good customer service. The money's gonna come.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, don't open up. Yes, the money's the ultimate goal, but don't let that be your only reason for opening up a business. You know, have passion about it. You know, look at it as that you want to do it because you enjoy what you're doing. And that's me. I've been a foodie my whole life, so I really enjoyed it. And just, we talked about, you know, leaving bad taste in your mouth, about failing, right? So I had a donut business. I owned 5 donut shops 2 years ago in Las Vegas. I took them from 2 donut shops to 5 donut shops in a year and a half. We're in 4 gas stations, 3 hotels, the convention center. I took a business and built it up tremendously. Unfortunately, that business closed due to some unforeseen circumstances. But it didn't leave a bad taste in my mouth for the food business. You know what I mean? I wanted to, I didn't look at the donuts business as a failure. I looked at it as a learning experience, right? So now I'm in the food, I was an absentee owner in the donut business, and that was a mistake, right? I gave my money, let somebody else run it, and the business didn't work because of someone else. This time, I put my money in, and I'm gonna make sure it works because I'm there all the time. You know, there's a big difference. Nobody does it like yourself. So I feel like now being at this location and being there and being in the trenches with my staff has made them see me in a different light and look at the business in a different light. And that's extremely important when you're starting a new concept.
Leading from the front.
Yeah. Well, and like it's like they say, leadership is not about positions, it's about action, right? And the fact that your team sees you, you know, and listen, you know, you're, for all practical purposes, you are a celebrity. I mean, and so when your team sees you out there bussing tables and serving food, like, it's incredible for the morale, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's even for the customers, you know, like, I mean, the best is when they come in, they don't even know who I am at all. They have zero clue. And they'll come in and then they'll see me, and then they'll hear me talk, and then they'll start realizing, like, man, why do I know this guy? I know him from somewhere, you know? And then they'll leave the restaurant, right? And then this is their reaction when they walk back in the next time. They're like, I knew you. I knew it. I couldn't figure out where I knew you from, but I went home and I Googled your name, knew you were the fish tank guy, and I came back in here because I wanted to tell you, so impressed with the food, so impressed that you're here working, and this, that, the other thing. And I was like, man, I'm glad you're here. So I don't go out there and, like, you know, tell people really, like, I kind of let them come in, they see me there. Some of them want pictures, some of them don't know who I am. But at the end of the day, I think the people that are fans, I think they're really excited when they come, and they're super, like, thrilled to see me. They're actually serving them food, engaging them in conversation, taking pictures with them. Just makes them feel like I'm just like anybody else.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like I said, there is that celebrity factor.
Right.
But when I'm there, I'm Brett, the restaurant owner. Yeah. I'm not Brett Raymer, the celebrity. I'm
Right.
the guy that wants to make sure that you have a good experience, because I know when you walk out of my place, 2 things you're going to do.
Tell
One,
all your friends.
you're going to go on social media, good or bad, right? You're going to hit social media with a picture, with this or that. 2, you're going to go to Yelp, or you're going to go to a review, and you're going to hit us with a review one way or another. 3, we want you to go and tell your friend, right? So if I was there serving you and you had a great time, you're gonna go back and be like, you know that Joe Tank? The guy's there, he's serving you. Literally, you go into his restaurant, he's literally there. Oh my God, really? We gotta go there. So then people come, and that's kind of what I'm trying to build, right? That be there, word of mouth, have people come, get the experience, and then down the road, hopefully we'll be able to grow the business and open up multiple, restaurants down the road.
Austin,
Yeah.
I mean, and you and Austin had a chance to talk
Yeah.
together during the break. So, Austin owns several restaurants as well. I mean, what do you think about that? The concept, not one, but the ability for him to kind of evolve and overcome the obstacles that it takes. Because being in the restaurant business,
It's tough.
It's tough. That's what I've heard. I've heard it's extremely tough. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, honestly, just from hearing him talk about the restaurants and the concepts, and I mean everything that you're talking about, I feel like I'm very well aligned with. From the way that the way that you raise your kids to treat them and teach them the value of a dollar and hard work, and then your failures are lessons. They're not as lucrative as success, but they're just as valuable. Learning from the failures and learning the lessons that you really need to learn to grow. I'm a big fan of, big believer in taking one step back to take two forward. And, sometimes you gotta learn from those failures, but again, they are just as valuable as the success, not in a monetary level, but, I think, being there on site and doing the things that you do is second to none. You see too many business owners that they really want the status of being a restaurant owner. And, we've got 3 restaurants here, soon to be 4. And, I don't have a background like you do, but, when you go in and people treat you like a celebrity because they know you're an owner, but, I'm the first one to roll up my sleeves and start washing dishes or running food or whatever you need to do to make your business successful, and leading by example is extremely important. We also have the thought that, the customer service goes just as far as the food. You can go in and receive terrible service and have good food, but you still may not go back. But if you can get both and feel, our mantra is that we want you to feel like a guest in our home. From the time you walk in to the time you leave, and we want you to feel comfortable. And it really sounds like that's what you're doing with your place. And I think that's just as valuable as anything.
And it's funny you say that, because I always tell people, I go, now that you have dinner in my house, I go, you're always welcome back. So that's what I kind of tell people, like when they come in, I go, this is my house, you've come into it, you've had dinner, now we're family. I tell them, that's kind of like my lines to them. That's my like end line to them. I'm like, when you guys are leaving, I go, now you guys have been in my house, you guys are like family, now you got to come back. So that's kind of what I tell them when they leave. And they're like, oh my God, we love it. Thank you so much for the treatment, and we'll be back. And we've been open 5 weeks. And let me tell you something, I've had 50 return customers already, and more than once. They've come 3-4 times. They just can't get enough. And in any business, I think if you give a good product and you give good customer service, money's gonna come. You shouldn't really open a business. Yes, you wanna make money, but the reason should be is to give the good quality product, good customer service.
That's just a given. The money
that should be the given of opening a business, because the money will come. If you give all of those things, you're gonna make money. That's the bottom line is that, everything's not going to work, but you're never going to know until you really try and do it.
When you're ready to expand, when me and Austin need to sit down and have a talk, we'll bring something to Albuquerque. Yeah, I love the idea, the concept. Excited to go visit it here in a few weeks. So,
yeah, absolutely. We one of the things we also take pride in is having that little niche. There's 3,000 restaurants in Las Vegas. Okay, what's going to set us apart from everybody else? And you gotta have that little niche. So there's a couple of things on our menu that we've done that nobody has. So we do garlic knot sliders, right? We do meatball, chicken parm, eggplant, garlic knot sliders. So that's something in the valley that you're not gonna find. We do something called a lasagna sandwich, where you get a piece of lasagna, it's on a piece of Texas toast, and then you take another piece on top and then cover it with cheese. So we also make our own bread. Our bread, we had our bread shipped in from back east, brought it to 10 vendors that everybody uses in Vegas. Nobody can make the bread. we wind up finding this little old lady that has a place, and she's bread for us, exclusively for us. So you're only going to find our bread, our business. So we feel like with the few little niches that we have, amongst having good food, that kind of separates us from everybody else. And social media, has changed the game with everything, Nobody does print advertising anymore. Nobody does radio commercials. I mean, it's all far and few between. Now it's all about, having a good social media game. And the food that we make, our social is pretty strong. Between my girlfriend, she does amazing, organic content, reels and stories. I do a lot of the videos, but it's consistency, just like your food, having a social media game that's consistent, having, consistent food, having consistent customer service. It's all just basically a part of your concept. If you can do each one of those things, you're eventually going to be successful. And that's what we've done. We've done that.
Daniel.
And you're 5 weeks in. That's great.
Yeah, 5 weeks in.
You got a long ways to go.
Oh, hold on, Daniel. Did you hear what just happened? Vince is over here making deals and left me and you out, huh? Well, listen.
Y'all get a
I'm
discount
glad
card.
we got to sit in on this one. Man.
Yeah. That's all right. That's all right. There's a little concept that you guys don't know about that me and Daniel know about a lot.
Yeah.
That's peanut butter and jelly and tortillas.
I don't want to know about that.
We're gonna
Only in
take
New
that.
Mexico.
We're gonna open a store out
Yes, we
here,
are.
Brown sugar on
and
it.
you'll
right?
get a discount. You'll get a discount card coming up. Well, and the thing is too, Brett, is like, being that you've been able to create different businesses that you're passionate about, and you have good people around you. Talk a little bit about that. Where how important is it to have a loyal team, a solid team? I always say, I'd rather don't have close friends, keep friends close. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And having a solid team around you is important. What do you think about that?
Listen to me, can't do it by yourself. Microsoft wasn't built by Bill Gates himself. Apple wasn't built by, Steve Jobs and Tim Cook. There's people that do it for you. But the one thing that you need to do is you need to have trust in people, right? That's at the end of the day, and you can't let your things that have happened in your past continue to the next person. And just because, you didn't do a good job, doesn't mean that you're not going to do a good job. Doesn't mean that you're not going to do a good job. So just because you had somebody, come in and not do that job, you need to look at that next person as that person is a separate entity, right? So the long story short is that I could never have done what I did without the people that are there. But the one thing that I do is I don't meddle somebody else's. I'm not an expert in the kitchen. I'm not an expert in the restaurant. I'm not an expert really in anything except for building something, in my opinion, right? Bringing people to the table is what I'm really good at. So what I did is I brought a crew to the table that is experts in food, kitchens, things that I know nothing about, right? I didn't bring in an expert social media guy. I didn't bring in an expert business guy because that's what I'm really good at. So what I did is I tried to hand pick the people that I think are going to be the team players, and then build up around them, right? So we our core group was the chefs, which you need the chefs to make the food,
Right.
And then at that point you need your prep guys. You can speak for this. You're going to need your sous chefs. You need your line cooks. You need your pizza makers. You need your dishwashers. So you need all of those people. So what we did is we got the core group, and then we built a team around that. And I had the kitchen guys, the chefs, go out and reach out to their people because they are the experts in that field. Why am I going to go get you a dishwasher, right? That's not my expertise. You're the guy that worked with dishwashers before. Go find your best dishwasher and give them a call and tell them what we're doing. Bring them to the table. Bring the people that you're going to feel comfortable with. So that's what we did. We brought a team, and I'm super happy. The team's mostly from the East Coast. My chefs are from Brooklyn, Canarsie, Queens. We got Philly. So we got a lot of East Coast core group there, which is good for the brand, right? Our brand is we're an East Coast, New York style pizza shop. So when people come in, they got East Coast guys there. You got guys talking to you from Brooklyn. You got guys there from Queens. So everybody can relate, There are a lot of people that say they have New York pizza, and they're from Germany. You know what I mean? And you walk into their place and they're speaking to you in another language. So at the end of the day, it's hard for me to really believe that that's New York pizza when you don't have the real New York guys in the kitchen, throwing down New York food. So we have the whole concept from beginning to end. We state New York, and when you walk in through our door, I mean, as soon as you walk into our restaurant, there's a mural of 9/11 that says never forget.
I love that.
So you walk into our place and it screams New York right from you walk in the door, from the person saying hello to you, speaking in a Brooklyn accent, to my chefs speaking to you like they're from back east. So you get that full experience when you walk into our place. And it's extremely important, I feel, to have that, along with the team. The team is ultra important, and yeah, great, I could put the money up, but that money would disappear like that if we didn't have the right players.
Conscious capitalism, that's what it's called.
Yes, sir.
Realizing that you can't do what you do with other people in your team.
Yeah, the first time I laid out, a few $100,000 and I wasn't part of that, right? And I let other people run it. That was my bad. That was my mistake. I was wrong because I should have known better. But once again, I didn't let things in the past deter me from having faith in humanity. So I believed in that person, put up the money, believe it, didn't go the way I expected, but that's okay. I didn't blame him. I blamed me for not being there all the time, for not being on top of my money, for not watching what I done. So now, if I do it again, man, that's stupid, even more stupid on me, right? For not listening to myself the first time. So now, you got me 7 days a week, 12 hours a day in the restaurant until that thing is to the point where it's self-sufficient, so that I can go and look for the next one.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the goal.
I got to chime in on what you said about letting your qualified people do their job. I was mentored under local business owners, and they had great people doing their work, but they were what do you call them? Micromanagers. And they were in everybody's business, and they would not, and they're shooting themselves in the foot, trying to make sure everyone was working in their capacity, but to their standards. And I'm like, that's not your deal, man. Let your foreman do that. Let your project manager do his thing. Let your finance guy do his thing. And that's kind of how I was mentored, by everyone. A few different people control, trying to control every aspect of their business. And I love what you do, man. Find qualified people and let them do their jobs.
That's why I left ATM, believe it or not. So I left ATM because my brother-in-law Wade was a micromanager.
We've seen the show.
No one can sign. No one signed the checks except for him.
Yeah.
No one could even open the mail except for him. So it got to the point where he was a micromanager, which was okay for a while. But then when it got to the point where the micromanaging wasn't going right, and he didn't want to let go of the micromanagement, then it was hard to really indulge myself and get back in because he had already been in there. So I was just like, you know what, enough for me. I'd just rather just leave than have to, deal with that.
Right.
And then that's another thing. I can learn from that too. Like if I'm going to manage my businesses, like I'm going to manage them now myself. I'm not going to have someone else manage it. Same thing with the donut business. I let someone else manage it. I let these guys manage the kitchen, but I run the business now. There's a big difference now. Like I know what's coming in. I know where the checks are going. I know who's owed what. I know how much money we're spending on advertising. I know everything about the restaurant business now. Whereas before, like you'd ask me questions about the aquarium business, and I'd be like, oh, you got to talk to Wade. You got to ask Wade that question. You got to ask Wade that question. Now it's like if you want to know some ingredients, like whether we're gluten-free or not, you have to check with the chef. But other than that, if you know about the business itself, like you ask me any question about the business, how much we spent on advertising, how much, this, I know everything there is to know about this business now. So, whereas before I really didn't want to know. Like I kind of wanted to, being in the sales game. Like I was more into just selling aquariums. Now I'm selling my brand now. I'm not selling the food, I'm selling the brand. So I'm more open now to selling the brand and letting everybody do their work, where I'm just kind of pitching that brand as a whole just to get people through the door. Once they get through the door, the food is going to do all the work themselves. I could bring people through the door. If the food is terrible, you're never going to come back regardless of what Brett Raymer says. But if I bring you through the door and the food is amazing, you're going to come back. And that's kind of what's been happening. We've been bringing people through the door, giving them the great service, great food, and they've been coming back.
Well, as an owner too, it's very important to set your team up for success. You're talking about the team and recruiting these people, and it's up to you to be not only a leader, but providing the tools to your staff, setting them up for success, and then allowing the reason you brought them in for their personality or their expertise to flourish, and I think that is truly what creates a successful business, is when they, even though they may not have ownership of it, they take ownership of it. This is my menu, this is my style of service, and it allows them to really flourish. And I think a lot of people, you're talking about being micromanaged, they don't receive the tools that they really need to succeed. And when you have your faith in somebody and you give them everything you possibly can for them to succeed and they do it, it's a great feeling. It's like watching your kid grow up to be extremely successful, and because you had the opportunity to give them the guidance and the leadership to see what they can turn into. And when it all turns into your business, and like you say, you want to do all this, and then so you can step out to start the next business. That's how you build these businesses and empires, if you will.
Yeah, and it's totally true in what you're saying. When I talked to Chef in the beginning, even though we had no clue how much business we were going to do, the bottom line is we believed that we would do tremendous business, right? So in order to do tremendous business, you have to set yourself up to do tremendous business, all right? If you have a small refrigerator, you can only do a certain amount of business based on your refrigeration, your freezer, this.
Absolutely.
So at the end of the day, if we wanted to do $1 million a year, we needed to set the business up to produce $1 million a year. So when we came into this business, the chef said to me, he goes, we could do this for 150, or we could do this for 250. He goes, but if we do it for 250, we're going to be able to do $1 million worth of business. Whereas if we do it for 150, we're going to be able to do $500,000 worth of business. So do we want to spend the 100 now, or do we want to spend it later? My first words were, let's spend it now. I go, let's spend it now. I believe in you. I believe in this business. And if I'm going to put 150 in, I might as well put 250 in and make it so that we're going to really grow. So at the end of the day, we did it to the point where we put in a walk-in and actually turned one of the offices in the place into a walk-in. We took the freezer, the refrigerator out of the kitchen and moved it, put in a freezer, a bigger one, so that we could handle the business. And now we're doing business, right? So it just goes to what he says. We set the restaurant up for success. When we open the doors, we just opened the doors without a big grand opening. We wanted to just do business and let the place run. Our training was about 3 days, right? Because I was 4.5 months in, and we needed to open the doors because the money was just flying out the window. We needed to bring business in. So we opened the doors and we did our training. Pretty much the first 3 weeks of opening was pretty much training. Well, during those 3 weeks, I didn't advertise much, little social media here and there. People, just the word of mouth just started trickling in, and the business became really busy. So we didn't go out right away and grand open from day one so that we'd be slammed. Over the course of 3 weeks, it built up to that business to where week number 4 was our best week for week 4, but the staff, we eased them into it. We set them up for success. At the end of the day, if I open my doors up and there's lines down the block and we're giving them terrible service, terrible food, people are going to complain. They're going to do it. Out the gate, it's the first 6 months of a restaurant is the most important. We basically did it slow. So now we're at the point now, we just had our grand opening last week, and now we're starting to really, the kitchen's humming, they're doing really well, things are flying out of the kitchen, things are moving in and out, we're not having as many mistakes as we had, but it just goes to show, what you said is totally the truth. You got to set people up for success. If you set them up to fail, they're going to fail, and then you're going to blame them, and then they're going to blame you for not setting it up the right way. So we tried to alleviate all that. We wanted to make the restaurant a success from the beginning, and we spent the extra money, brought in the right people, and did it right to set them up to be successful.
You get to work out those kinks in that first 3 weeks. It's important.
Yeah, especially with technology, right? I told you guys the place is all technology friendly. So, it's all kiosks. There's no front of the house staff. It's all back of the house. So it's important that the technology is working correctly, because if the technology is not working correctly, everything fires to the kitchen when someone orders. So if it's not firing to the kitchen correctly, if the screens aren't getting the food that they need, people are getting the wrong orders, the chef's getting the wrong orders. So it really is kind of just a system that had to be followed the right way. If you didn't do it the right way, you were gonna come out with the wrong food, everything was gonna be wrong. So it took us time, but now the system, like I said, because it's all digital, the kitchen runs like this. Quick, smooth. Everybody has a screen in every station. Everybody knows what everybody's cooking. We could see all the fulfillment. We could see basically everything through the system. And we take the weight out of it. So if you go into a restaurant, you normally if there's tables are full, guy says, all right, it's going to be about 30 minutes. So then you have to wait 30 minutes. Then you go, table gets clean, you sit down, you wait for the waitress to come over. She brings you your water. You've got the wait, order, menus. An hour by the time you go from sitting 30 minutes outside to getting to the table to getting food takes about an hour. If you came to my restaurant and let's say our tables are full, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you put your order into the system. Then what we do is I have a host, whether it's me or somebody that's watching all the tables. Once one of the tables is heading towards dessert, we'll fire your food so that when you guys slide into that table, your food's already ready to come out. So what we're doing is we're taking the weight out of you having to wait at the table again. So you're just waiting one time at my place. And that's kind of the concept, right? So we get people in and out of there quick because there's no dishes, there's no front of the house staff. Basically it gets ordered, you sit down, your food comes. We don't rush you out, but as soon as you got your last scoop of pasta in, I'm like, is there anything I can get you for dessert? Any to-go containers? All right, guys. And I start kind of helping you kind of get out the door. And I think people know it's a pizza place, So people kind of know that they see people standing around and they kind of have the respect where they get up and they're like, okay, we see you got people waiting and we go. So we kind of eliminate that waiting portion of, having to wait anytime at the restaurant. So it's a new concept. It's worked out really well. Hopefully we're going to open up more of these in the future,
Do you have a bar?
We don't have a bar. Like I said, it's only 1,400 square feet, 700 square feet of dining, but we will have beer and wine in the next few months. We're just waiting on the licensing.
We got time for one more question?
One more question.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of, you're talking about setting the restaurant up for success, and I just wanted to talk a little about setting yourself up for success. And I wanted to talk a little bit about limiting beliefs, Me going into business for myself, just growing up, I was actually very introverted and insecure about myself and stuff like that. And but at the same time, I had big dreams. I want to do a lot of things, and I realized that was a limiting belief that I needed to get past, And so I knew that I had to be intentional about it. So I got into sales, and started doing it that way. So I just want to know if maybe you could share, maybe some limiting beliefs that you had, some hurdles that you had to move past, that you can keep things running, or even maybe experience some things that most people would, consider a setback that you turned into a setup for success for yourself.
Man, that's a good question. So, there's a lot of things that I've done some things in the past, and this is something that probably nobody knows. I don't think this is even public yet, so I'll give you guys a little insight of something that's not public. In 1999, actually, let's say 2001. In 2001, I was in federal prison. I did 1.5 years in federal prison. Most people don't know this about me. I had nothing. I was in jail. I was married at the time, came out to being divorced, came out there trying to take my daughter from me. Still had a business, but had no clue in life where I wanted to be. I came out to nothing. I'm literally sitting in jail, came out to no money, no house, no nothing. And then my wife I was married at the time, when I came out, I thought that I was going to have a wife when I came out, and she the day I got out, she goes, I want a divorce. So I get out and get divorced, trying to take my daughter from me. I wind up winning custody of my daughter, 9 months out of jail. And then I always wanted to be famous, right? Baseball player, athlete growing up, always was my dream. But then when I was in jail, I realized that that's not where I should be, that life is that's not what it's about, And it was the first time I ever got arrested in my life and got in trouble. It doesn't matter what it is, but it required me to be in federal prison. It was tough because I didn't know what to expect. But you know what? When I left federal prison, I told everybody that you're going to see me on television. So I go, I'm going to be famous one way or another. I'm going to figure it out. And, I never let that deter me, right? It did put a damper on me at the time because it took a year and a half of my life away. And I never wanted to be back in that position ever again. It actually did me good. Probably would have been worse off. I probably would have been worse off if I didn't go there. But I knew that there was more in life for me than sitting in a jail cell. I knew I was better and bigger than that. So what I did is I promised myself and my family and my daughter at the time that I would never put myself in that position again, that I would better myself. And the only way I could do it was by being a better person. And that's me. No one else could do it for me. It had to come from me. So I told those guys as I was leaving, I'm like, you guys going to see me on TV? Don't worry, I'm going to be famous. Now remember, this is 2001, right? I don't get the idea until 2007 about becoming famous. So 6 years go by. In between there, still building a business, building aquariums. We had opened in '94. I go to jail in '99, and then I'm there till actually go in 2001. I get out in 2002, and then in 2002 is when I started bettering myself as a person, and that's what led me to becoming famous, because I needed to do something that was going to take me away from what I had done. Me. I needed that for me. And that was it. Like, I disappointed a lot of people. Yeah, it was tough. And I had to do something to make up for that disappointment. And that was probably it. Like the TV show was my time to shine. It was my time to be able to give back to my family, to make up for the things that I had done. And like I said, nobody really knows that about me. Nobody. And that was hard for me. It was really hard, But once I had the idea, I knew that I couldn't quit, because that was going to be the thing for me that set my life apart from where I was.
I love that you saw what needed to change and then you changed it. Just people like me, for instance, who do have limiting beliefs, like introverted, and they go their whole life in this extremely limited capacity because they're like, oh, that's just me, that's who I am. And I've talked to countless people like this, like, oh, oh, that's not me. I don't talk to people, or I don't get into situations like that. And you can change, and you can change your life drastically. You have that power. You just got to be willing to take the risk. You got to be willing to be vulnerable. You got to be willing to put yourself out there. And man, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, man.
It's not about what you do. It's not about what you did.
What you do after.
You do afterwards. And I've been in 100. My show was on 190 countries in 35 different languages. I've changed people's lives. And just to create that show, to be able to do what I did and to see what I've done has exonerated me from what I did as a person. I felt bad many years for doing what I did, because I put people in the wrong way.
Sure.
I wasn't a dad for a year and a half. My daughter was 3. She didn't have a dad for a year and a half, It put my business in a bind. I was gone for a year and a half from my business. How can I make good on that? And you know what? I did it tenfold.
It did define who you are now.
Exactly. Like that was me then, and this is me now. And I've changed a lot of people's lives and done a lot of different things, giving away aquariums, Make-A-Wish, I've done this, that, and all of that stuff is because of where I was. And I wanted to be somewhere else. And I was able to do it because I did it. Nobody did it for me. I was able to do it. And that's the one thing I'm super proud of, that, it was me.
Well, it's funny, man. And I think you and I should probably have a conversation one-on-one. And I'm super thankful that you shared that story, bro, because I mean, you dropped a lot of knowledge on us today, and we're so thankful for you being here. But I will tell you, hearing that, and you sharing that with us on our show, is something that I'm gonna remember forever, man. Like that, and for you to be as open and honest as you were about that, means the world to me.
I've been holding it in for, since '99.
Well, let me tell you, bro. I went through something similar here about 2 years ago, and I was destroyed in the media, and I was drugged through the mud, and I felt like I let a lot of people down. I was ashamed of myself. I was afraid to show my face anywhere. Doing this show is it's taken a lot of courage for me. It's a big. I feel like, it's a big risk on my part, but it's something that I need to do to put myself back out because, it's funny because people will often judge you by what they hear. They don't even give you the chance to exonerate yourself, or they don't even give you a chance to explain yourself. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
I just, again,
It just goes to show that you can do anything you want to do. Like I said, and prison didn't define me.
Right.
At the end of the day, I was always a good person, but I made bad choices. At the end of the day, I tell my kids, everything that you do starts with a choice. Doesn't matter what it is. Everything you do, you choose to put your foot on the bed in the morning, you choose to, go to sleep, you choose to close your eyes. Everything starts with a choice. And I made bad choices. And the only way to correct those bad choices was by making better choices. And I made some good choices, and they worked out for me. And you know what? I was able to put a lot of that away, but I was never really able to talk about it because, when you're famous, and that's not what people want to hear. They want to hear all the good. They don't want to hear the bad, And not that it was bad, but at the time it was bad, But the last 20 years since it's happened, and I've and we'll say this from like one of the movies from like Dumb and Dumber. I totally redeemed myself. You know what I'm saying? I totally redeemed myself.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, I feel good about what I've done. I've felt good about changing people's lives. I've given back to the world, to make up for the things that I've done in the past. And I don't never look back on that anymore, So today was just a day for me to really just get it off my chest because I've never really talked about it.
thank you.
Never had that ability. Friends know, but to really come out to the public, to let fans or people know about me, about where I've been and what I've done, this is the first.
Man.
So,
Bro, thank you so much, bro.
Cheers, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
But before Eric, I know Eric's about to close this out, but first of all, I was checking out your going fishing podcast. That's one way everyone can follow you.
Yeah.
And is there any? Other than visiting your restaurant, you want to go ahead and repeat the name of it and kind of whereabouts where they can find it.
They can
where
just,
people
anybody
can follow
can
you.
email me directly, BrettRaymer@gmail.
Okay.
I answer all my emails.
Nice.
I'm easy to find. Find me in Vegas, the restaurant.
Okay.
My phone number's on my social media page. If someone needs to call me or get a hold of me, any advice, they can always reach me. I'm always around to help. That's what I've done. I'm not a really religious man, but I believe the man upstairs is looking down. And I always believe that what you put in life is what you get out. So I try to put in as much as I could to get out.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Thank you so much, Brett. We appreciate you. So if you learned anything from today's show, it's your past doesn't define you. There's a lot of things that sometimes we keep inside, and we make mistakes, and we feel like we can never get out from under those mistakes. We feel like we've let a certain amount of people down, or we've disappointed our friends and our family. And I think a lot of times what we do more than anything is we beat ourselves up. And we don't realize that there's a lot of grace out there. That's still, there's still good people who believe in you and give you that chance. And I know a lot of people that can relate to what they heard today on today's show. And, me being one of them. Going through something like I went through as well, that I felt like, for the past 2 years has been a weight on my shoulders and held me back, made me afraid to be in public, made me afraid to speak on anything. But in a lot of ways, it was just like Brett was saying, you know, having people come at you, even in a negative way, is actually a blessing. You know, they're, you know, keeping you relevant, right? All that I can ask though is just make sure that with the same grace that you expect to be given, give that back to other people. You know, there's nobody out there that's not worthy of that, right? I mean, we all have our shortcomings. We all have our times when we're going to fail. We're going to slip up. You know, it's one thing to make a mistake and fall and never be able to get up, but it's another thing to be able to lean on those people who are beside you that really believe in you and have the ability to keep you going even when you don't feel like you can keep going yourself. You know, if I can leave you with anything from this show today, it's that, again, your past doesn't define you. If you've made a mistake, stand up, 10 toes down, pick yourself up, and remember who you are. There's nobody out there that's perfect. And remember that. Even the people who are throwing stones at you, ain't nobody perfect. There's nobody out there that's never made a mistake. And another thing, just because you see what you see on social media doesn't always mean that it's real, right? There's a lot of people that show only the good stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful for Brett sharing his story with us today, because you see that even with someone who is that successful, who's had that much happen for him, that he stepped out and he took the chance and he fought for his future. It just goes to show you that everybody's worth a second chance. Everybody deserves it. You know, sometimes we get into this mode where, you know, we feel it's our right to judge. We feel it's our right to throw stones. We feel it's our right to talk down about other people, but it's not. And remember, you're always going to have to answer to someone. Sometimes the answer you might get isn't going to be the one that you want. So if you show grace, trust me, the same grace will be shown to you.
You know what it's worth. It's why we align like the universe. I'm tripping on the power on words, a little shortage. I always come around. Oh, you know we'll orbit, ministrating, debating with feelings we keep in storage, and we falling back naturally. We never had to force it. Gazing on the stars, thinking hard how the nights get. There's so many stars out, but there's nothing like this. And when you see me twinkling, baby, just start pointing. So I know I'm always across your mind like ointment. And when we talking home, break a pencil, appointment. We get it in a hurry, other words, we getting jointed, girl. Remember, you don't need none of them. When you dark out, look, gotta know you one of them. And think we're brave, it had to beat, at the beat, at the beat. Baby, tell me what you want now. I'ma always be your gravity, what you need, baby, I'ma hold you. Baby, I'ma hold you down. Baby, I'ma hold you down. Baby, I'ma hold you down. Hold you down, hold you down. And think we're brave, it had to beat, at the beat, at the beat. Baby, tell me what you want now. I'ma always be your gravity, what you need, baby, I'ma hold